But let's focus on the macros at large. We've got a battery of guests to analyze what the inflation numbers will look like. Start off with Maithili Busnarmat, consulting editor ET Now. She joins us right now on the show. In a bit, we'll also get in Sangeeta Purushottam, S.K. Ghosh, as well as Arun Singh. In fact, yes, a couple of our guests join us as well. Thanks so much for joining in, all of you. Maithili, an initial comment. The last time that we spoke, 2 days ago, you were generally very pessimistic about the data that is coming out and about the road ahead. What's the expectation this time around? And if indeed the number comes slightly lower than estimates, will that be taken positively?
Well, the WPI is expected to be substantially lower than the last month, but it would not fall as dramatically as the CPI for the simple reason that the food and primary articles have a much smaller weight in the WPI, roughly 20% as against, 40-odd% in the CPI. So you're not going to see that kind of a dramatic fall. So I would expect the WPI to come somewhere within what the estimates are, 4.8, little over 5%. And even if per chance, like in the CPI, the WPI were to surprise us on the positive side, I don't think markets will take that too seriously, because at the moment, as I said, keep saying again and again, it sounds almost like a stuck record that everybody's going to be watching for what happens to the elections. So any positive will be discounted, and this, unfortunately, any negative will be hugely factored in. So that's the position we are in. So WPI is expected to fall, not as much as the CPI, but even if it were to surprise us on the positive side, markets would not take it too seriously. They take it with a pinch of salt.
Okay, that's what Maithili is saying, and she's pretty much been maintaining that view. Dr. Singh, let's get in your views, particularly on the core inflation number, because that has been hardening of late, and there has been that divergence even in the CPI headline and core inflation number. Does that worry you?
So definitely, I think it's last 1 or 2 years, if you see, since the CPI number is coming out, that have raised us further concerns about the price stability going forward, and the divergence between CPI, core inflation, as well as overall, is fortunately is coming to a closer, but still the concerns remain when the CPI, when we compare CPI and WPI. WPI largely is expected to be around close to 4.7%, but as RBI made it very clear that they are focusing overall inflation basket, including CPI. So certainly there are big concern unless and until we see some stable sign of price moderation going forward. I think our worry will not come down at least till next 2 quarters.
Soumya, how optimistic are you on the WPI numbers? You've been maintaining for a long time that actually prices will fall even more significantly. Do you still maintain that stand? And how seriously will markets take it, even if it is more positive than what markets anticipate?
See, what I have been saying is that the CPI trajectory will be faster than the WPI, and that has actually been borne out by the data which was released a few days back. But as far as WPI is concerned, I believe that the downside, a significant downside now may be limited. It may decline to less than 5%, but I don't see a significant downside because of the simple reason is the core WPI, which is a 55% weightage. And if you actually look into the core WPI component for the last couple of months, the imported core has been inching up. And so that actually is a cause for concern, and I believe this month also the core WPI may inch up a little bit, and that could cap the downside to the overall WPI number. And also the fact that the food prices, which has declined significantly, I think most of the gains have now been factored off into the data. So going forward, I don't see too much of a decline in these food prices, but WPI will decline, but not to the extent which we may believe.
Sangeeta, how do you think the markets look at or will look at these numbers as they come out? I mean, will it have a meaningful dent on how the bond prices do react, or probably even how the equity markets react?
I think on the bond markets there could be some impact, but as far as the equity markets are concerned, I think they're really not immediately pricing in any kind of interest rate cut, and I think that's really the key key factor that they're basically going to be looking out for. So I think it'll this number in a sense will come and go as far as the equity markets are concerned, because the what's getting priced in is that we're still some way off from seeing a cut in interest rates.
Mr. Arun Singh, we keep having this debate that actually looking at the core inflation number is quite meaningless in the Indian context. At the same time, we still seem fixated on what is the core like, has the core improved, has it come down? So what is it? Does the core matter or does it not matter? Is core inflation a meaningful concept or a meaningless concept in the Indian context?
See, of course, we cannot deny that. We can't say that it's an absolutely meaningless concept. See, core inflation for monetary policy targeting, it makes eminent sense, and most of the time, it has actual impact of the monetary policy can be visible on the core inflation. It's of course most of the time it's not been factored in given the elevated level of food prices and the primary article, and that had a negative impact on the overall CPI and WPI number. But unfortunately, given the elevated level of primary articles and food articles, we could not, and in fact RBI could not was able to fully consider on the core number going till date. I think the core number is basically the true indicator of the demand side pressures and where your monetary policy works in a better way. So I think of course it's a meaningful number for any policy makers to consider and then they decide on going forward.
Soumya, would you agree with Arun saying that the core number is actually the meaningful number for framing policy? So regardless of what Governor Raghuram Rajan says, that we don't care whether it's supply driven or it's demand driven, we're going to squeeze demand in order to get inflation down. So do you think that now with food inflation coming down, RBI will once again focus on core, even though they may not formally accept that or admit that?
See, I would just like to make an observation over here. Even the core is important. If you actually look into the historical data of core WPI, headline WPI, core CPI and headline CPI, I think the core WPI is the most volatile if you look at statistically, and then the core CPI is also more volatile than the CPI. And I think that is one of the reasons why the RBI has actually believed that targeting the headline numbers may be better than the core numbers. So from that point of view, I think the justification of targeting a headline number now that it is targeting CPI by the RBI is justified, and even the core number is important to understand the intricacies of the movement in the prices. But on a net basis, if we are looking into the price trend, I think the headline number may actually give you more information than what the core number reveals.
Sangeeta, if I can shift away from the immediate thing of the WPI inflation to what does this mean in terms of bond yields? You've already said that it perhaps will not impact bond yields much, but given the fact that the first half borrowing calendar is expected by the end of this month, what kind of borrowing calendar do you expect to see? A lot of concentration at the short end, given that particularly one really doesn't know what the true fiscal deficit number is. So will the RBI, knowing that there will not be any demand for longer dated paper, focus only on the short end? And given that scenario, what does the WPI figure falling or rising really mean in terms of bond yields?
I think it's quite likely that the borrowing calendar could focus more on the short end, particularly because this is not a normal year in a sense in terms of planning out the government's fiscal position. And in the past, we have known that the government has or the RBI has actually at times played out the calendar based on the rate expectation. So basically, sometimes you do borrow at the short end if you expect that over a period or towards the end of the calendar year, the rates could ease, and that does help the government's finances. So I think a combination of factors could lead to more borrowings at the short end as far as the calendar is concerned. And as far as the bond yields are concerned, I think it's really a question of factoring in the longer term expectations, and I don't think those are going to change very quickly from based on the specific numbers which come out, because the stance taken by the RBI this time has been fairly clear that they're very serious about targeting inflation, bringing it down over a 2-year period, and therefore it's the sustainability of the inflation numbers at lower levels which is going to be a key determinant. So we really need to see that that trend remain strong consistently over months.
Soumya, one of the factors that everybody's been really celebrating is that the food inflation has declined substantially. But given all this talk of what the El Nino might do to weather patterns and monsoon in this year, do you think this food inflation improvement that we've seen is unlikely to be sustained? And should we really gird ourselves to kind of say inflationary expectations is going to be a long time before they really trend down?
No, I agree with you, Maithili, on this point, because if you look at the food inflation numbers, and a simple statistic shows that the entire increase recently of the CPI actually was because of the vegetable prices shock, which has now gone out of the system. Now, and after this recent crop damage across several states, the unseasonal rains, and also the fact that the April, the summer months has always been a little bit cruel, and after the elections, the prices tend to go up a bit. So if we juxtapose all these factors, I think the food prices downward trajectory may be capped, and we have to seriously guard against any spike in the vegetable prices, which had thrown out the entire price trajectory hayward in the last 6 months or so.
Mr. Arun Singh, if I could throw that question to you, would you agree that most of the reduction has been on account of vegetable prices, and that is something where we really don't have a buffer, so there's no question of government mismanagement. It is essentially a question of supply and demand, and that being the case, supply is going to be constrained, and we're not going to see food inflation trending down for too long in the future.
Yes, definitely. I think food inflation is a temporary phenomenon. If you see last 5, 6, in fact, 10 years, it's a significantly higher. At primary article was close to 10%. So that is a big concern, and I don't expect food inflation going down substantially in at least in a couple of years from now. I mean, we have not done much. Of course, there was some policy suggestion to improve the supply side bottlenecks in the past, but that was not enough to improve our supply side bottlenecks and clear the supply rigidity in the supply framework. But the issue here, I mean, we have to see that some of the seasonal component of like say, fruits and vegetables and sugars and milks have actually helped overall food inflation to come down. How long is going to sustain? That is a big question in front of us. And given, as you said, that there are supply bottlenecks, and we believe that is continue to be there, will have a negative impact on the food article inflation at least in the next 1 year. Again, we have the fears, the fresh fears have emerged of El Nino factors coming into the play, and then there was some rain in some part of the country that damaged the crops. So I think the relief which we have seen as of now is not going to remain for a long. I think in the next couple of months it should, I mean, if I have read the economic number correctly, it will again start going up. So I think the government, we need to do and the government need to do more to improve the supply rigidity and help food inflation come down.
Right. Neeraj Gambhir, MD and Head Fixed Income India at Nomura Capital, now also joins in on the show. And Neeraj, speaking of the food inflation, given that we did see it soften for the CPI data, and the expectation is that it will also pull the WPI inflation number lower, how worried would you be going forward with respect to the monsoon as well as the supply side bottlenecks on the food inflation number?
So I think the previous two commentators have rightly pointed out that there is the reduction in the headline inflation that we have seen in the recent past is largely driven by the food prices coming off in a seasonal fashion, and there are fresh concerns around the damage to the crop on account of the hailstorm and the rains, and the forecast of the monsoon, while it is supposed to be normal monsoon, but there are issues around whether we're going to have a serious El Nino effect. So I think given all of this, the comfort level around the fact that food prices will continue to stay where they are, and we will not see another spike in the vegetable prices going forward is quite low. So I think this is something that we need to really watch out for. The other comment is that if you look at the trend in the inflation, while the headline has come off from a high of what
Neeraj, please excuse me. While you're giving that answer, I would want your comments on the inflation data as well. WPI has come in at 4.68. That's way lower than the poll suggested as well, 4.8, and much lower on a month-on-month basis as well. So very heartening numbers by WPI. Mind you, we were expecting that maybe WPI will not correct as much as CPI because of the lower weightage of food particles, but clearly it's worked. In fact, food inflation at 8.12% versus 8.88% in January. So the WPI numbers have come out very well. Neeraj, your initial comments really on this. I don't know if the markets would be reacting to this number or no. But Neeraj, your initial comments, CPI was lower, WPI has come in way lower than the poll suggested.
I think it's a tad better. I think we were expecting at around 5%. I think it's come out at around 4.68, so it's certainly better than the expectations. I need to see the disaggregated data and the components and what's happened to the core WPI inflation to make further comments. We were expecting the core inflation to go up a little bit from where it was last time, so I need to see whether there is, what's the kind of trend on the core inflation in WPI as well. But as far as the market is concerned, we are in 5% range in WPI for a while now, and I don't think that's what the market is kind of reacting to. As far as the monetary policy is concerned, there is a very clear shift away from looking at WPI as the target variable to CPI as the target variable. So I think yes, it's a good news for the market that the inflation trend that we have been seeing in CPI data is also carried through and sustained in WPI data. But I think the market is still going to be focused around the glide path of the inflation that monetary policy and Dr. Urjit Patel committee has talked about, and what Reserve Bank needs to do to make sure that that glide path is achieved.
Okay, and interestingly, the WPI inflation number is at a 9-month low. I'm just going to detail all of the internals because, as Neeraj mentioned, that's very important. You do have the primary articles inflation that has cooled off marginally, 6.3 versus 6.8% this time around, perhaps by easing food inflation. That's what's attributed to this. And here's the key. Feb manufactured products inflation, we were expecting a rise, has in fact cooled off to 2.76 versus 2.8%. The fuel and power component was very important given the diesel price hikes, the hike in the power tariffs. We were expecting it to inch up, but it has cooled off to 8.75% versus a 10% last month. The food inflation we flagged off, and interestingly, once again, the niggling factor, the core WPI inflation is at 3.2%. So in fact, it's gone up further versus the 3% in the month of Jan. Maithili, put all of this into perspective, all of these numbers, and how should one really read into it?
Well, I would say it's certainly a positive. I wouldn't call it very heartening as Neeraj put it. I would say a positive, something to build upon. But going forward, there are a lot of reasons to remain, a little skeptical, a little doubtful about whether this is going to be part of a sustained trend. So certainly it is good news. It could have been bad. So to that extent, there's reason to feel, if not happy, at least cautiously optimistic, I would say.
Just before we go into the others, but Neeraj, you mentioned that you would want to comment once you have the internals as well. And aside of core WPI, which is of course a niggle, other things have cooled off a bit.
Yes, I think as far as the WPI data is concerned, I think we are seeing some sort of a convergence trend here between the headline and the core. While over the last, I think 12 odd months or so, while we've seen the headline coming off pretty steadily, we've also seen the core sort of inching up from about 2.2 to 2.3% to 3.2%. So I think there is a convergence sort of a sort which is happening here between the core and the WPI. It basically tells you that as far as the producer prices are concerned, the inflation is pretty moderate. It's in the retail prices where we need to focus on.
Soumya, if you look at the numbers, the disaggregated numbers particularly, the differences are only in terms of a few decimal points one way or the other. Given the fact that, our data gets revised so often, in fact, we're just seeing that December data has been revised upwards. What are the chances that this data would also get revised upwards? And in fact, the improvement, however marginal it might be, might also disappear in a statistical correction.
See, Maithili, before I mention, I'll just give a very interesting observation regarding the data which I just looking into. See, the core WPI has moved up to 3.15%. And I think the entire decline, if you just look at the core WPI, which is weighted of 55%, if you look at the manufactured products, which is a weighted around 65%, within the manufactured products, the food products prices have almost collapsed from an annual inflation rate of 8.8% to less than 1%. And this is largely being driven by sugar, which is now at -7% from a year-on-year increase of 10.5% last year. So I think a large part of these cooling off, even though the primary articles have also declined from 10 to half, I think because of a decline in the manufactured products, and that has been driven by some items which could be possible outliers. Sugar, for example, is one of them, and I could also see edible oils as an example. So these two has a combined weightage of around close to 5% in the total data. Now, regarding the revision which you just said, December numbers, I don't know how much they have been revised, but I have a feeling that in a declining inflation trajectory, the difference between the provision and the final will not be that significant. So from that point of view, I maintain that possibly there could be some amount of difference in the provision and final, but in the longer term, the two numbers would like to converge when the inflation is on a downward trajectory.
Would you agree with that hypothesis, Mr. Arup, saying that given the, whenever there is a downward trajectory, you will find the two numbers converging? Or is it that we've seen time and again in our data, particularly as far as CPI and WPI, either the spike or the decline is explained, by just one or two commodities? In this particular case, Soumya just talked about sugar and edible oil prices. And subsequently, when revised data comes in, you could find a dramatic turnaround. Do you think that is possible at all, or will we find the data continuing to trend downwards?
So definitely there are some commodities which we have seen in the past played a major role in changing the overall inflation numbers in either directions, and that will continue to remain in the systems. But going forward, I think the more information when they get, they revise the number. I mean, we have to see the health of the current inflation numbers to basically to decide where we are heading on the inflation front. Going forward, I think some of the commodities will keep impacting overall WPI number and CPI number, and convergence will always be when the numbers are falling down. So I think to some extent I agree to that.
Sangeeta, your first take now that we have the details of the internals, are you optimistic or less optimistic now that you have the details of the internal numbers?
I think we still really need to wait and watch, because the way I see it, even with a very good monsoon and an agriculture production, we're still seeing food inflation at levels of 8% plus. Now that again really indicates that there are structural issues which will get resolved only over a longer period of time. The second thing is that, we're seeing low inflation or lower inflation now concurrent with very low economic growth. Now the key issue is that were the RBI to say cut rates and were economic growth to get stimulated, can we sustain the inflation at lower levels? So I think these are the key issues which will really which need to be watched out for, and my own sense is that we're not going to see any easy answers to this till the new government comes in place and we actually start addressing many of the structural issues which we've been struggling with. So the whole issue of food prices coming down is really more a cyclical factor which could easily reverse from one year to another depending on which way the monsoons go, and that's not really what we need. What we really need is huge increases on the supply side so that you can have growth along with moderate inflation, and we still seem to be reasonably far away from that. So that's really how I would look at this whole data, and therefore say that we just need to wait and watch.
Absolutely, Neeraj, what Sangeeta said is very true. It comes back to us again and again. We'll have to wait and see when the new government comes, what the new government is like, and what kind of policy actions it takes. But having said that, there have been reports in every election, just before in the run-up to the election, we see a huge increase in spending, whether by private parties or by government. Will that add to the inflationary pressures, do you think? Or will it, because it's spending essentially in terms of currency, that the money supply overall will be contractionary and you will not find much of an impact on inflationary pressures? Which way would you think your vote goes?
I think there is there is a tendency to spend before the election, certainly, and that's seen in the way the monetary variables move. But this time around, I think the Reserve Bank has been pretty careful about the kind of balance sheet growth they are supporting of its own balance sheet, and then hence there has been a sort of a pretty tight leash on the kind of primary liquidity that is getting created in the system. We are also seeing the credit demand is pretty moderate. It's not something which is moving up by leaps and bounds. So that's also sort of something which is going to have a little bit of a restraining effect on the economy, if you will. And at the end of the day, I think if you look at the inflation data, and if you were to go by what Dr. Rangarajan said in his speech at the FIMDA PDI conference, which is basically there are 3 or 4 underlying factors as far as the food inflation is concerned. One of them is the increase in minimum support prices, and the other 2 are basically the basically rural wages, as well as the impact of the financial inclusion and the deepening of the financial system. Now, some of these things are pretty structural, but some of these things are also dependent upon the government policies. So I think while the election spending will probably tend to have some impact on the consumption aspect of it, the longer term aspects of how the new government wants to think about agriculture, whether it wants to think about agriculture in the context of increasing just the support prices for the farmers, or also in the context of fresh investments into this sector, into the allied sectors. I think those are the issues which will become a lot more important and bigger determinants of the trend of food inflation going forward.
Absolutely, too many unknowns. But Soumya, if I were to take this to you at a time when it's going to be very difficult really to read the tea leaves, do you think it'll be possible for the RBI to achieve that 8% by January 2015, which is what the Urjit Patel Committee had talked about its glide path? If this improvement in the inflation number is not going to be sustained, how difficult will it be for RBI? And is its credibility at stake if it does not reach 8% by 2015, January 2015, mind you?
See, as per the current trends, the numbers, trajectory, looking at the food prices trajectory, the evolving dynamics and all these factors if I take into account, I think that 8% target which the RBI was initially talking about, remember that the January 2015 target is 7.5% plus minus 1. So there is actually the inflation rate could be the range is 6.5 to 8.5 with 7.5% as the mean. So in that scenario, I think if the current trends continue the way they have been moving, and even after admitting that there could be some amount of spike in the food inflation, the problem with the CPI number is that it has a disproportionately larger weightage of food in it, which is and so any spike in the food prices, even though maybe on a smaller amount, could distort the entire trajectory. So from that point of view, getting to that number will be challenging, but I think that given the current disinflationary impetus in the economy, and also the fact that the numbers towards the end of the year and is the high base effect is there in the month of October to December, I think we could hit the target, but decline in the numbers significantly below 8% will continue to remain a challenge in the current environment. So CPI numbers could, currently it is holding at around 8.1%, but I believe that a significant downside to it could be capped given the evolving situation.
Sangeeta, one of the basic rules that the Urjit Patel Committee has really formulated is that savers must get a positive real rate of return. Given the fact that we're still not there, the real rate of return to savers is still not positive, do you anticipate a further increase in interest rate? Of course, everybody's been saying that the RBI will keep status quo, will not hike rates. But remember, you also have to ensure that savers get a positive real rate of return. By that logic, there is a case for hiking interest rates. Do you think that the RBI will do that or no?
I think, if we see the inflation keep coming down, then the case for actually hiking rates, becomes a little weaker. So it all really depends on, how we see this number. But more importantly, I think a lot depends on what we see happening post the new government. I think the high inflation and the high rates, in a sense, are a pressure on the government to act, because I think beyond a point, there's a limit to what the RBI can do. And it's really, the ball is is actually in the court of the next government to make sure that a lot of these supply side issues really get tackled over a period of time, because beyond a point raising rates also is going to be counterproductive. So I think it's a difficult one to really I guess what they would do. My bias would be that they would probably not raise rates but just maintain status quo, and if we see the inflation trending down.
Neeraj, given the widely held belief that the fiscal deficit numbers that we saw in the vote on account are really an underestimate, and the new government will find that the fiscal deficit is actually much higher than what Mr. Chidambaram had estimated, the first impact of that would be on government's borrowing. And if government's borrowing grows up hugely, then the benchmark sovereign rate of interest will go up too. What does that mean for the RBI? Are its hands tied even more than they are at the moment?
I think you may question some of the issues around the fiscal deficit, especially the way the subsidies are getting treated in the budget numbers. But I think at the end of the day, you got to recognize that there is a very serious attempt towards fiscal consolidation. And as far as the government is concerned, whatever sort of projections they have given, with regard to their deficit numbers as well as the borrowing numbers, they've kind of stuck to them. In fact, this year, if you see, they've actually borrowed less than what they had forecasted at the beginning of the year. So I think there is a belief that there is a reasonable amount of sensitivity towards that. We need to obviously see how the new government deals with it. But I think as far as the market borrowing program is concerned, I believe that there is a reasonable amount of sensitivity to the fact that if you were to exceed the size of the borrowing program, there will be a disproportionate impact on the yields. So I think the market is currently of the belief that the number that is being put out there in this vote on account document is the number that at least the new government will try and stick to. And if possible, maybe improve upon this number. But if this was not to be the case, and come June and July, and we were to discover that the new government plans to increase the borrowing program significantly, obviously that is going to have a pretty significant impact on the market.
Arun, are you inclined to be as charitable to the finance minister as Neeraj and say that the numbers, we have to take them at face value and the government has tried? Certainly they have sent out the intent there seems to be there, but can one really take those numbers at face value, particularly if you think that the new government in all probability is going to be of a different configuration, in which case there would be perhaps even a vested quote-unquote interest in showing the numbers at much higher. So would you be as charitable as Neeraj, or are you being slightly cynical like I?
See, actually, we have to look at the fact. I mean, there are concerns about the health of the fiscal deficit number which put in the interim budget, and I do agree, because some of the number, if you can see, there are some concern at the health of those number. But this is historically, if you see when the new governments come into power, they try to create a different numbers, and we might see some deviation when the new budget is announced in the June. We might see some deviation from the current fiscal deficit number, but that deviation will not be significantly different than what we have seen in the interim budget. Might be 0.2% variation in either direction. Of course, it will be upper side, but we have to see that how the next government is planning for the next 1 year, and then how they are planning for the expenditure front and their budgeted revenue front. So I do believe, I'm absolutely not charitable to him, but I think 0.2% variation, there are some chances, 0.2 to 0.3% variation chances, and we should not be at this point of time too cynical about the statistical number. I think they have managed, of course they've controlled expenditure during last year, but they managed to some extent, and this is evident in the international. If you see, the FI inflow have gone up because of the good confidence and the optimism in the international investors. So I think there are some chances of revision, but it's a small, just 0.2 to 0.3% upward side.
All right, we'll leave it at that then. Thanks so much for joining in and giving us your views on the overall inflation numbers as well as what we can expect from a future action on the macro front as well as from the Reserve Bank. It's been great having you all with us on the show. And on that note, we'll slip into a quick break right here on Market Sense. Do stay with us for lots more coverage on the markets.